Our investigation into the death of 10-year-old Sara Sharif was launched following the discovery of her body at her home address in Hammond Road, Woking, on the 10th of August. This evening, around 7:45 p.m, 3 people were arrested in connection with this investigation at Gatwick Airport. 2 men aged 41 years and 28 years and a woman aged 29 years were arrested on suspicion of murder after disembarking a flight from Dubai. They are currently in custody and will be interviewed in due course. Sara's mother has been informed of this latest update and is being supported by specialist officers. Our thoughts remain with her and those affected by Sara's death at this difficult time. This has been an extremely fast-moving, challenging and complex inquiry, and we remain absolutely committed to conducting a thorough investigation into Sara's death. We will not be commenting any further at this point and will provide further update as and when we are able to do so. Thank you.
Both of them now landing in the UK from Pakistan via Dubai, now arrested on suspicion of murder. Peter, are you surprised by that instant announcement of the suspicions there?
No, I think it's a fairly sort of bland statement that you'd expect from the police at this point. Obviously, now the suspects are within the British criminal justice system. As far as the police are concerned, the matter is sub judice and they will not be discussing detail at all. I think the next thing we would expect from them in any detail would normally be at a point if the suspects are charged with a simple statement about who's been charged with what and that they're appearing at whichever magistrate's court it is. So it's not going to be something where we're getting press conferences every few hours like we would with a live incident with nobody in custody.
Yes, and Detective Superintendent Mark Chapman there refusing to take questions, clearly,
yes.
You know, a simple statement of the arrest on suspicion of murder. He did say, though, that it was a fast-moving and complex investigation. Fast-moving, Sara's body was found on the 10th of August.
I think in relation to extradition or getting people, A, traced, B, detained and C, back from foreign jurisdictions, it's pretty fast. It can take weeks, months and years sometimes, and so it has moved fairly quickly. And I think that's probably the aspect that he's referring to, the international aspect of the thing.
And in the interim, what sort of investigations would have taken place at the family home in Woking in Surrey?
Well, there will have been a full homicide investigation, just as if the suspects hadn't been identified as being outside the jurisdiction. So local inquiries with neighbours, a scene examination, a detailed scene examination, detailed examination of Sara to see not just the injuries but any physical trace evidence that might be on her. Obviously the history, the family history is important. And I suspect at least some relatives are within the UK jurisdiction have remained here. And so, as well as neighbours, there may well be family members who can shed some light on that. And of course, there may well have been earlier incidents that either police and or social services have dealt with, which will have information recorded in relation to them as well.
And mention there of Sara's mother, Olga. As we mentioned, she had given an interview to Polish television talking about the harrowing experience of having to identify her daughter and how when she closes her eyes, she can just see what's happened to her baby, as she described it, and the suggestion that she's being supported by specialist officers at this time. Yeah,
there'll be family liaison in place. I don't know, is the mother within the jurisdiction of the UK still?
That I don't know. I know the interview took place, well, I don't know actually, it was Polish TV.
Yeah.
Whether it was done in the UK or Poland, actually.
But even if she's in Poland or elsewhere in the world, then it may well be that Surrey Police have sent family liaison officers out there for a short period of time to establish contact and to make her aware of the support that's available, even though they can't obviously provide the same sort of level of service that they can to a victim's relatives who are in the UK.
And obviously they said too that they're now in custody and interviews will take place, in good time. Would it be done straight away, do you think? Or given they've had a long journey, would it be tomorrow morning when they started?
It probably won't be. Time will be of the essence because there's a restriction on how long you can hold people in custody. But that said, it's not a case where the police have got the prisoners at the same time they've got the allegation of the crime, and so they're trying to scramble around the scene and the neighbours and the local inquiries and everything else.
That's been done effectively.
Exactly. So hopefully they'll have got an interview strategy in place, and so they'll be able to take a little bit more time getting that done. As you say, they've had a long journey back from Pakistan. The law requires, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984 requires that suspects arrested before they're interviewed, that if they're tired or they're ill in some way, that they're not interviewed until everyone's happy, the medical practitioner if need be, everyone's happy that they're fit to be interviewed. And so I wouldn't expect them to be interviewed this evening. It's getting quite late now. By the time they're booked into the various police stations and the procedure at booking in is gone through, then it's going to be 10, 11, midnight. And so I suspect they'll be put to bed for the night. And then tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8, 9 o'clock, officers will do an initial round of interviews with all of the suspects, probably simultaneously with different interviewing teams interviewing the different suspects, get the initial account that the suspects wish to give, and then break the interviews, come back together and see where they're at that point, and then perhaps start moving forward with more specific questions, more specific things that are being put to them. Well, you said this, but we know that, or someone else said this and you said the other. And so more specific things come in the second and subsequent rounds of interviews. I would imagine with a case like this, there'll be 2, 3, maybe 4 rounds of interviews. They've had some time to get their story together. That will obviously create difficulties for the interviewers. They'll be trying to establish the truth underneath what's been being presented as the truth. And so that will mean that they'll quite often come back out of interviews, sit down, maybe speak with people who have been maybe remotely viewing the interview or who view the video recording of the interview. I suspect they will be video, not just audio recorded, and sort of try and deconstruct that and try and pull everything out of it that they can and see if there's any indications of where they might be lying. You try to establish what's true and what's not, and people find it very difficult usually to totally mask when they're lying, especially if you push them on things a little bit. A very basic thing might be that someone gives you an account and you forget it for a moment or two, and then you come back to it a few minutes later, and maybe you come at it from a different angle and go at it in reverse order or something like that. And it's very difficult to maintain lies in detail in that way. And so there'll be indications there that they may pick up that will give the police officers doing the interviews an indication of where to press further in this interview. They'll be interviewed using the peace interview technique, which is the sort of standard one the police in the UK have been using for many years now. And it's a stage sort of thing. So with a more complex inquiry, there'll probably be an interview advisor sort of sitting above the interview teams, advising the senior investigating officer. If they haven't got that, the senior investigating officer will be trying to sort of coordinate everything themselves, but trying to work out exactly what's going on from these 3 separate interviews that are taking place, and obviously comparing that with what they know already from the scene or from any other inquiries they've done.
Well, we'll see what comes out of it, certainly.
Indeed.
Peter Kirkham, former Detective Chief Inspector with the Met Police, with that breaking news in the last few minutes concerning Sara Sharif, aged 10, her body found on the 10th of August after a phone call from her father, it seems, from Pakistan. Her father has now arrived back in the UK alongside Sara's stepmother, Beinash Batool, and her uncle, Faisal Malik, her father, Urfan Sharif, all now arrested and in police custody on suspicion of murder. The detective involved, we heard there, Detective Superintendent Mark Chapman, saying it had been a fast-moving and complex investigation, and Sara's mother, Olga, is being supported by specialist police officers.